And now, Legal Perspective with Nick Clekis.
A criminal defense strategy can make or break the outcome of a case, and some of these defenses have shaped cases into high-profile trials that captivate the nation. Joining us to break down how these defenses work is Ali Menegakis, attorney for Clekis Law Firm. Ali, always great talking to you, girl.
Likewise.
Okay, so can you start by diving into the common defense strategies that you see as a lawyer in the courtroom?
The most common defense strategy is innocence, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So luckily in our country, we are all presumed innocent if we are arrested or charged with a crime. Mm-hmm. Thank God we're not presumed guilty. Could you imagine trying to come up with an innocence defense if you're in jail or don't have any resources? So when, as I explain to juries when I do trials, as a defendant, you come into the courtroom and you are covered with this cloak of innocence. Yeah. And that cloak remains on you unless or until the prosecution can prove each element of the crime against you beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. Now that is the highest standard that we have in our legal system, frankly. And there's a reason for that. The reason is we want to have a safety net. We do not want innocent people being wrongfully convicted. Mm-hmm. We'd rather have guilty people go off free than have an innocent person wrongfully convicted. And as we learned with the Innocence Project all over this country, unfortunately that happens even with death penalty cases. There have been people that have been wrongfully executed. So I believe this system is the best that we have come up with, and I'm proud of our Constitution and our amendments. Mm-hmm. So presumption of innocence and saying, I didn't do it, and more importantly, you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, is really the most common defense that there is. Mm-hmm. And so that includes attacking the evidence of the prosecution, who has the burden to prove that against you, and also attacking constitutional violations. For example, a police officer getting evidence without a warrant, or with getting confession out of you without reading Miranda rights, which we've talked about before. Yeah. Those would be constitutional violations. And so those are really the most common way to, maintain your innocence in a criminal trial.
Yeah. So constitutional violations, attacking evidence, and innocence.
Yes.
Those are the three most common defenses that we see. And now there also are some other defenses that are a little bit more uncommon, that are also used in the courtroom. Yes. Tell us about those.
So the other types of defenses are called affirmative defenses in the law. And what that means is saying that, we agree that I did it. Mm-hmm. I committed this crime that you are saying I did. However, you should not find me guilty because I am legally justified in doing what I did. So one of the most common ones with that when it comes to murder cases, when it comes to battery cases, is self-defense, right? And in South Carolina, we have the stand your ground right, which means that if I am in fear of imminent danger to myself or to someone else in terms of defense of others, then I have the right to stand my ground and use proportional force to defend myself or my loved one.
And so I think timely, I know the Menendez case has kind of been brought back to the surface, and they also used self-defense as their reasoning for doing what they did to their parents. In a situation like this, I have to ask you, Ali, does your client still plead not guilty even if they're using affirmative defenses?
That's a really interesting question. I've never thought about. Yes, absolutely. If you're going to trial, then you are always going to be pleading not guilty to that charge. Okay. Otherwise, you would be entering a guilty plea. So yes.
Okay. So from my understanding, to kind of sum all of this up, high-profile cases, if we're talking in that term, common defense strategies, we have O.J. Simpson, right? He said, I didn't do it. And then we have the Menendez brothers that said, I did it, but here is why. So that is an affirmative defense.
Exactly.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. Wow, Ali, this is so fascinating. I can't wait to have you back on next week, and we're going to talk about the bail bond process. Always a pleasure talking to you. Obviously, Clekis Law Firm, 8439 and I can't wait to see you next Tuesday.
Can't wait.
We're back after this.
This has been Legal Perspective with Nick Clekis.